and welcome back to my channel, Conquer College Admissions. Today we have a special guest, and I'm collaborating with Beth Young, who is a fourth-year student at Harvard University. And because I attended Harvard University graduate school, I'm going to be talking about my admission process to get accepted into Harvard Graduate School. And if you're new to my channel, hi everyone, my name is Julie Kim and I graduated from USC. I initially went to UCLA and I transferred. I went to USC Marshall School of Business and then I went to Harvard University Graduate School. And I help middle and high school students get accepted into their dream colleges. And I do that by helping my students all find their interest and passion. Without that, I'm not really about okay, get accepted into Ivy League because it's prestigious. So welcome to my channel, and I hope you enjoy this collaboration.
Okay. Hello everyone, my name's Beth, and I'm a current senior at Harvard College studying economics with a minor in psychology. Right now I'm still figuring out what I'm doing post-grad, but very much involved with undergraduate life at Harvard.
Okay, so Beth, the hardest thing about really applying to Ivy Leagues is the essay because students are like, how creative do I need to get? What do I need to write about? Do I need to like make up this crazy story? Do I need to sound pitiful? So we have so many questions revolving around Ivy League essays. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, I think the essay is definitely really challenging. As I mentioned before, it's not like the standardized test where you know what kinds of questions are going to be asked or you know the format, but the essay is just so open-ended. Usually like you don't even know where to start. So I think a really good way of just getting some ideas down is reading previous essays. You can find lots of them online. The Harvard Crimson releases a book every year that has 50 essays from current college students. I submitted my essay to be in the last one, so you can get the book and you can read my essay if you want. But it's always helpful just to see what other people wrote about, so maybe you can find something equivalent in your life. I think there's a lot of pressure put on the essay, but you can really write about anything. It doesn't have to be your internship at, the United Nations or something. Like, admission officers don't need to hear about the most prestigious experience you had. It could be something really simple like baking cookies with your grandmother every Sunday. It's just something that shows your passion or your interests. I think a big tip is to use a subject that you can somehow spin as a metaphor or as like a bigger life lesson. It might feel really corny and cheesy, but I think that it's important to include that sort of self-reflective element because it shows that you've been thinking a lot about this topic, that you have learned something through your experience. Like if you're talking about baking cookies with your grandmother, you can talk about how it's maybe taught you a lot about your family or your heritage, or it's got you thinking about what type of person you might want to be in the future. All these kinds of bigger questions, I think that's important to showcase in your essay. For example, in my Harvard supplement, I wrote about why I study Latin, and I brought in an example of I study it because I love the history and the culture behind the language. And I mentioned how a lot of people consider it to be a dead language because no one speaks it anymore. And I was refuting that argument because I thought, well, how can you argue if it's dead when it's alive in so many Romance languages that we're speaking, or it's alive in like all of the stories that you can share and learn if you study the language. So things like that where it's like kind of like, so cheesy, but I think it helps because it adds an element of thoughtfulness to your essay, and you want to leave the reader with, some sort of greater life lesson or takeaway from your experience. So for grad school, I know you have to write a statement of purpose. Could you talk a little bit about your process through that? Maybe, if at all, if it's different, because since you're applying to a specific program, how you showcase what you're interested in through the statement.
For the statement of purpose, you can think of it as like a combination of your undergraduate common application essay and why major and why college all together. So you really have to combine all aspects under the word count limit, and every school has a different word count that they give you. I believe Harvard word count was around 500, 600. It was actually around 500, around there. So it's very similar to the common application essay. So it's even harder because, like I said, you have to really squeeze in everything together. Um, One of the things that you want to focus on when you're writing statement of purpose is don't get too caught up with the personal reason. It's a good starting point, but it's not usually something that you are going to talk about over and over again because they really want to see, okay, if you come to our program, what kind of classes will you be utilizing? Which professor do you want to work with? Is there a particular lab you would like to participate in? We really want to see your goals and how we can help you get there. And so it's really the why major aspect that comes in. I actually, when I was writing my statement of purpose, I had my first draft written, and I absolutely didn't like it at all because it sounded like I was trying way too hard to tell them like, hey, like I know everything about this, and I've done all your research. It just sounded really fake. And so I literally worked on this mindset exercise where I erased everything from my brain and my thought and how I was feeling, and I just thought, Julie, like, why do you want to go here? Right? Like, what is your big why factor? And where did this begin for you, right? So it was as if I was writing kind of like a journal, and that really made me talk about things that were really true to me, and it didn't sound fake after all. So I had to go through that exercise, otherwise it would have just been like another superficial essay, right? And so that's the tip that I would really give. Like, what is your why? Like, why is this so important to you? And I think you could take it from there, and obviously you can add in the why college and why major elements later on. I am also very curious. How was your typical? I mean, you're still attending, so how is your typical day like at Harvard?
Yeah, so a typical day for me, I mean, varies, but I can just describe maybe my Mondays. I had a class like 9 to 11, Monday, Wednesday, which is on the earlier side for a lot of students. Most people like stop taking 9 a.m.s, or if they see 9 a.m., they're like, ah, they like run away screaming and never sign up. So I'm going to take like 4 9 a.m.s, I think. So like half of my time here will be at a 9 a.m., which is fine. I think it's nice to get up in the morning. So Monday I had a class, 9 to 11. I was taking a public speaking class, which was really exciting, and it taught me a lot about not only, how to public speak, but also about what it means to, connect with your audience. I learned a lot from the people in my class. Oftentimes at Harvard, you don't necessarily interact with your classmates a lot because most of the time it's, sometimes you're in a huge lecture and so you don't necessarily know the name of every single person there. But in this class, because of the structure of, we're giving speeches every couple weeks, and it always helps if you provide some sort of personal story. I got to learn a lot from my classmates, learn a lot about them. Most of them were seniors, and some of them I'd never even seen before. So it was nice to get to know someone in a much more personal level in a class. So I really enjoyed that. Was probably one of my favorite classes at Harvard. So I was there from 9 to 11, and then I had a discussion section from 12 to 1, which is, so the class structure typically at Harvard is you'll have like a lecture that meets maybe once or twice a week, and then you'll have a smaller discussion section, which is basically they try to break up the lecture into smaller groups of like 20, 25 kids, and you'll meet on a weekly basis to go over what was discussed in class. Helps you solidify the material and participate in a smaller setting. It's a little less intimidating maybe. So I have section for an English class I was taking called Introduction to Asian American Literature. And I mean, I mentioned I'm an economics and psychology major, so it's like, what are you doing in an English class? But Harvard has a general education requirement that all students are required to fulfill. Basically, that is, they have, I think it's like 5 or 6, it's changed over the years, but groups of, divisions or fulfillments that you need to have by the time you graduate. So a lot of classes can fulfill those requirements. So this English class I was taking was under aesthetic, interpretive, or culture and belief. Since it's an Asian American literature class, it fit under that label, and so I was able to count it for my gen ed credit. I was also just genuinely really curious because I wanted to take an English class, wanted to take an Asian American related class, kind of learn more about my identity. It was a really great class. It taught me a lot about, what Asian American literature means, what it means to have an Asian American experience. I read a lot of amazing books that I probably wouldn't have read otherwise. It really just, opened up this new passion for me to do more writing and to reflect upon my personal background. So that was a great class, and I loved going to section every week. And then for Monday, that was, pretty much all of my classes. I didn't have a lot of class time this semester because a lot of my classes just met once a week. So I had an economics class once a week on Wednesdays, a psych class once a week on Tuesdays. So, those wouldn't necessarily meet on Monday. And then I would, eat my meals in between classes around I have dinner back in my dorm. For upperclassmen, it's kind of you're put into one of 12 houses, we call them, kind of like Harry Potter. At the end of your freshman year, you live there for the next 3 years. So you really get to experience that campus community, that culture that you get at every house, because it's a big part of your life here at Harvard. You eat your meals here, there are intramural sports teams here. Every house has a gym, a library. We also have at Elliott a movie screening room. We have a wood shop. We have a dark room. So it's a lot of different activities that you can do on campus, which really helps add to the college experience. So I eat my meals here, and then at night I have a meeting every Monday from 10 to 11 p.m., which is kind of a crazy hour for anyone who's not here. Even in the summer, I was like, how am I going to stay awake for this meeting? But because Harvard is 98% residential, meaning only 2% of people live off campus, it's highly likely you'll have meetings at weird hours because you're living in the house, so you're not really doing anything at 10 p.m. So we have this meeting for house committee. Every house has a committee that oversees house life, like formals or study breaks, any sort of event that brings the community together, we organize. I was just chair of the committee for the last year, so I was running all of the weekly meetings, planning, budgeting, doing everything to make sure it was running smoothly. And I had those meetings every week. My term has now kind of ended, so we have our successors coming in next semester. It's kind of a bittersweet ending because it's a big part of my time here, and now it's coming to a close, but it's also nice to not have all of that responsibility all of the time. So that's kind of a typical day in my life. Go through my classes, go to my extracurriculars, and then that kind of repeats.
Wrap up this wonderful conversation. Beth, what is something that you learned at Harvard? What is the number one thing that you learned there? Most valuable?
Yeah, I think the most valuable thing I learned is that maybe this is kind of silly, but I think I would say it's people don't know everything. No one knows everything. Some people maybe know very little, but what I mean is it's okay to feel like you're lost or you're confused or you're not sure what you want to do, because most people feel that way, especially when you're younger and you have a lot of interests going on, you have a lot of questions about the world, and you're not really sure where your place is. I think it's okay to feel that way. Know that wherever you end up, like even students at Harvard where you think like, wow, they're like the smartest people and whatever, like we often don't know what's going on, or like we don't know what we're doing. Everyone's trying to figure it out for themselves, and it's okay to be confused. I think when I first got here, it was really scary sometimes because I was like, wow, I'm surrounded by all these amazing and talented people, and this person has met Barack Obama like 3 times, this person's traveled to this country, like went touring. So it's really easy to get overwhelmed and be thrown off by the sheer amount of talent that people have. But just know that everyone is unique and different in their own way. You all can bring something special to the table. So it's okay if at times you're really confused or lost. Like, don't feel like that's bad at all. Like, I think if anything, it's good to question what you're doing, and it's always good to think about what your next steps are. That way you kind of hold yourself accountable, you're critical, and you can try to do what's best for yourself. I remember I was working at this company where I was like the only American, and most of the people had never met a Harvard student before. And so I spent the summer with them, and they're really intimidated. And at the end of the summer, they're like, "We realized Harvard students are just like us." And I was like, "Exactly! Like, I don't know what's going on." Like, and most of them were like 4 or 5 years older than me, so I felt like I actually learned a lot from just their pure life experience.
So what about you, Julie? What is the biggest thing that you took away from your time at Harvard?
My biggest thing that I took away was to open up. Uh, because before going to grad school, we're in high school, it's sometimes very clicky, right? And when you go to college, it's like not much changed for me when I went to college, because still the kids who were Asian would hang out together, kids who were into like sororities and fraternities would hang out together. So it was still that clickiness. And everyone is majoring in something different. So you don't really, like let's say for instance, like my friend is in the pre-med track. Like I'm not really going to ask too many detailed questions about pre-med because that's not where I'm going into. So once I started graduate school at Harvard, I knew that everyone was passionate about education, and that's why they were there. And I really wanted to learn more about why they were there and what brought them to this place. And just hearing why they came and what they wanted to study just gave me so much perspective about life in general. Like I had one colleague of mine, a classmate, actually, she was studying autism and how autism was being perceived in South Korea. So she was doing research on that. And I was like, wow, that's so amazing. And I've never even heard of that before. I didn't even know that was a problem in Korea. And so, again, I learned something, right? And I had another student where another classmate of mine where she was really interested in teacher quality in high school settings, and especially in math classes. And so that was just another whole avenue that I learned about through her. And I think I still try to practice that even now. That's why I always reach out to people and ask them about their experiences. So again, the number one thing that I took away was open up, reach out to people, listen to their stories, and just have have a coffee with them, or I was gonna say drinks, but I know some students are in high school. Just have a 45-minute conversation with them, and be curious about other people and where they come from, because you never know what that's going to take you, where that's going to take you, right? So yeah, that's what I learned. That's it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed our collaboration. And Beth is seriously amazing, really inspiring, right? If you need additional support navigating through the college admissions journey, you can go ahead and book a free strategy session with me. And I'll leave the link down below where I'll be able to assess your GPA, SAT scores, volunteer summer programs, and create the best next action steps for you. And during the call, if we are a good fit, we could work together. If not, then it was great knowing you, right? So that's one of the resources that you could take advantage of. We also have a Facebook group called Conquer College Admissions. We have lots of members in there just like you, navigating through the college admissions journey. So be sure to click on the link down below. Also, if you need inspiration and more motivation navigating through the college admissions journey, I have a podcast called Demystifying College Admissions. I invite admission officers, students who already went to Harvard, test prep experts, parent communication expert. I just invite all experts from all industries because I want to guide you through this process, and I don't want this process to be stressful for you. So if you need some of that, go ahead and check out the link in the description box as well. And that's it. Thank you all, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.